You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Thursday, March 26th, 2020. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we have been talking about the sin of greed. We've talked about how we have a complicated relationship with money and possessions. But when we fall into greed, we are simply loving money and things too much and refusing to rely on God. Yesterday, on the Feast of the Annunciation, we were reminded that Mary is the most beautiful example of trusting God, even when life is completely unknown. Today, we are going to look at Jesus on the cross. Remember, we are in Lent right now, so we kind of need to keep bringing our focus back to Calvary, bringing our focus back to Jesus on the cross. Each week, we have been looking at some words that Jesus said from the cross and how these specific words that he really spoke help us get rid of these sins. And in a big way, they give us the key so that we can unlock ourselves from these sins. So here is the phrase that we are going to think about today. Right before Jesus died, he said, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." Now, chances are you've heard those words said before. Jesus said these words, and then he bowed his head and he died. These are the very last words that he said while he was alive on this earth. Now, why do these words speak to the sin of greed? Well, it has to do with one term. It's kind of a big word, and that word is detachment. Detachment. What does that mean? Well, it's the opposite of being attached. So think about the possessions that you own or even the money that you might have. If you are really attached to those things, it means that you would really hate to lose them. If you're really attached to your money, you don't want to spend it. You want to keep it. If you're really attached to this Lego set that you have, you would be devastated if someone came and took it from you. You're really attached to it. Jesus, on the other hand, shows us how important it is to be detached, to not be attached to things on this earth. Now, if you were sitting somewhere where you can see a crucifix, I want you to look at this. This is the way that Jesus left the world. What does he have? He has nothing. All of his possessions, gone. He doesn't have any money. There's no bag on his side full of gold coins. All of his friends, we can oftentimes be pretty possessive of our friends. They're gone. They're not there anymore. Even the clothing that he wore was stripped off of him. He has nothing. In fact, the only thing that he has at that final moment is his spirit. And even that, even his spirit, he hands over. He says the words, "Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." So he has nothing. Now, yes, you need to feel sorry for Jesus. This needs to be sad, but it also needs to serve as an example for us. Jesus came to this world to show us how to live and to show us what we need to do in order to enter eternal life with him. Now, there's an old expression that goes like this. You never see a hearse hauling a U-Haul. You never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul behind it. Now, maybe you don't know what these words mean. A hearse is a vehicle with a coffin inside, so it's a dead person inside. You never see that with a trailer hooked up behind it with all of that dead person's possessions. Because we know when we die, we don't get to take anything with us. So even if you are an older person who's very rich and has spent their entire life piling up money and creating all sorts of fabulous collections, what sort of good does that do when you die? Nothing. Nothing. Jesus shows us that the only thing that matters at the moment of death is how our soul is. Now, the more attached we are to things on this earth, the more attached we are to our bank account or to our piles of possessions, the harder it will be for our soul to fly to heaven with God. We see this in the Bible. We hear about it all the time. But the more we consume ourselves with the love of money and things, the harder it is for us to go to heaven. Now, this is hard because, as I've already said, as people that live in the world, we need to have jobs. We need to have money and houses and cars and clothing. We need to have these things, but we need to have a relationship with them where we are willing to give them away if we need to, and we always see them as a gift from God, not something that we earned on our own ability. And so, Sprouts, my challenge for you today is to revisit almsgiving. Almsgiving, remember, is one of the things that we do during Lent in particular. We give of what we have to those that are less fortunate. Yes, we can give our time, we can give our talent, but I really want you to evaluate giving away possessions and money today. Do you have possessions of good quality that can be more useful for other people? Do you have money that you can contribute to the poor? If so, make a plan to do those things. Because remember, the tighter that we hold on to our money and our possessions, the harder it will be for our soul to fly to Jesus in heaven when this life is over. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God created you to be. With Holy Week approaching, we have been busy to create some fun, family-friendly resources for you, including a beautiful new Stations of the Cross storybook. If you would like to check these things out, simply check the notes for this podcast episode.